Hello, America. Welcome to your Leo Nation, where we believe in and support the rule of law. I am the chief, Mark Garrett. I was not going to comment on the recent presidential debate. Wasn't my plan, but I did watch it, like most of you in this audience, I'm sure, watched it. And I watched it. As I watched it, it really occurred to me how relevant it is to the rule of law, how relevant it is to your Leo Nation law enforcement officer. And it just so happens that some of the things that were said in that debate relate specifically to what I was going to speak about today. And so, with that, I just want to share a few thoughts about the debate. By the way, I hope you had a good weekend. Happy Monday. And let me dive right into it. So, the first thing that occurred to me is that when we're watching this contest of two candidates for the presidency of the United States, we're watching, observing a contest for the top Leo, the top law enforcement officer in the country, the chief executive officer, the commander in chief. Uh, and it's so relevant to what we talk about on this show on a regular basis. So, when you think about three branches of government, you obviously you have the legislative, you have the judicial, and you have the executive, the people who actually enforce the law. And those are the two men that we saw last Thursday on the debate stage. And again, this is very relevant to the topic that I originally and I'm going to share with you today. I want you to think about this that Joe Biden is the commander in chief. He is the president of the United States. And whatever your political persuasion may be, try to put that aside just for a moment. Don't care if you're conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, independent, decline to state, whatever it may be. I want you to think about this that he took a full week to prepare for that debate, a full week. And from what we can tell, I mean, he was thoroughly and completely sequestered from what we know from the rest of his duties as president, as commander in chief, as the top Leo in this country. He took a week to prepare for this debate. Now, this man has been president for 3.5 years. 3.5 years. You would think that most of the things that were likely to be talked about or asked of the respective candidates would almost be second nature to a person who's been in that position for 3.5 years. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't prepare for it. It doesn't mean that you don't have any right to you use your team, your advisors to prepare and to sharpen the edge, so to speak, for debate. But an entire week, and then we see what the results were in that. Now, this was 90 minutes. There was no editing that we know of. No reason to believe there was any editing of this. This was unfiltered Joe Biden in front of America, uh, contrasted to his opponent or with his opponent in front of these moderators, who, by the way, I think they did a pretty good job. I was a skeptic, but I mean, they did a pretty good job, the moderators. We all saw with our own eyes. I'm not telling this audience anything that you don't know, that you're not aware of. We've seen the pundits, we've seen the comments all over social media from CNN, from Fox News, from MSNBC, from ABC, the Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times. All they're forced to read about how poorly Joe Biden did. Now, again, I am not interested in piling on about his performance. That's not my point. My point is, for the most part, these are the same people, the same, by the way, same DNC, the same delegates, the same super donors, the same mainstream media that for the last several weeks and beyond that, but let's just say several weeks for purposes of this discussion, have been telling us that the images and the videos, the audios that we've seen, that we have observed of Joe Biden have been manipulated, have been taken out of context. They have told us over and over and over, including the press secretary for the Biden administration. We've been told over and over and over that what we're seeing in the behavior of Joe Biden is manipulated, that right-wing media and other people who don't like the president are feeding us mis and disinformation. I think that anybody with, I'll say, an open mind, you don't even have to have an open mind. You have to have two brain cells to slap together, I'd say, saw in this debate what the truth is. Not something surprising to me, and I'm sure not something surprising to most people listening to this podcast right now, that Joe Biden is in serious, serious decline. I want you to think about this. Robert Hur, the independent counsel that investigated Joe Biden about his documents at his house from when he was vice president and when he was senator, what they was doing in his garage for the last 40 years, who knows, or since he was vice president as well, said in his report, we've seen it, in short, I'm paraphrasing, that Joe Biden is not mentally capable of standing trial. That's what the independent counsel said. And of course, uh, the uh, uh, the Justice Department won't release the audio tapes. We knew before. We certainly know now why they won't release the audio tapes, because we would hear more from Joe Biden, like what we heard in the debate last week. That's why we would hear mumbling. Uh, we would hear incoherent sentences, if you want to use that word, from Joe Biden. And this is why the DOJ will not release those tapes. Even though we have his words, which are scrambled enough, I think hearing the audio of it would be even worse. And they know that, but we saw it for last night. The final thing I want to say about this is what occurred to me, and not for the first time, but it really brought it home last week with the debate. And watching now one party scramble about what are they going to do with their candidate. And by the way, what are they going to do with their president? I say their, in their party. He's the entire country's president. I understand that. But I'm talking from a political sense. It's their candidate, the DNC, the Democrat Party, the left-wing media, which is almost all the media. It's their candidate. What are they going to do? Well, I want you to think about this. Joe Biden, first of all, is not capable of lasting another 4 years. He may not be capable. I'm not wishing any ill will on him. He may not be capable of lasting another 4 months. We're all seeing this rapid decline in his cognitive abilities. But if the Biden administration had a capable, somewhat likable, non-controversial number two vice president, there would be a lot less pressure on the Biden administration. I take that back, on the Democrat machine, the Democrat Party machine, to replace him. And there are a number of ways to do that. They're all very messy, and they're all very, I think, contentious. But there are ways that they could probably do this. The problem is, who do you replace him with now? Because they don't have that likable and capable person. They have Kamala Harris. Why are they stuck with Kamala Harris? Because Joe Biden, when he was running for president 4 years ago, and a little before that, he said in no uncertain terms that he was going to pick as his vice presidential running mate a black female, or for sure he said a female of color. He, by definition, discriminated against the vast majority of other people in the Democrat Party that he could have chosen to be his running mate, whether they were male, female, white, Asian, Hispanic, any number of races. but he excluded them. He discriminated against them and said, I will not choose any group of people unless they happen to be a female of color. And this is what he left for himself, and he left for the Democrats to choose from now. This is a DEI, a diversity, equity, and inclusion trap that the Democrat Party has set for itself. And now they have to live with it. They have to live with this because they excluded any number of people, any number of capable people in the Democrat Party who could be the number 2 woman or man right now, waiting to step into the shoes of a president who is clearly faltering, clearly faltering. They limited their choices to someone based on their sex and their skin color through their own discriminatory practices. This has come back to haunt them in the most significant way, ladies and gentlemen. So, just wanted to touch on that a little bit. There are a few thoughts I had about the debate. Obviously, we got to do a couple of shows on the debate all by itself. And I'm not going to do that. Certainly not going to do it today. Maybe later on. But what I wanted to get into, again, it's not just because these things came to mind, but they also relate to what I wanted to talk about. And what that is about what the focus is of this administration, what the claims are of this current administration when it comes to law enforcement, and when it comes to specifically who is committing crime, who is or what group is a threat to internal American security. So with that said, let me just go ahead and take a look at a couple of articles here. In this first one, like I said, I always do, I try to mix it up here with my sources. So you know I'm not being biased when I do my research. This is from CNN. Now, we all know about the protests in this country that have taken place since the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel. And this is one example. This is a few days ago, about a week ago or so. This protest that took place in Los Angeles. Again, CNN, you can see right here. Got my notes here for you. This protest took place in Los Angeles, and it is in a very, very heavily Jewish segment of Los Angeles that I'm very familiar with. Pro-Palestinian protests, and again, pro-Palestinian. This is the first phrase in this headline from CNN. It's not pro-Palestinian. I guess it is effectively, but what it is more specifically is anti-Jewish. It's an anti-Jewish protest. Pro-Palestinian protest outside LA synagogue criticized as anti-Semitic after street fights with pro-Israel protesters. This is a June 24th. This is the article, again, from CNN. A pro-Palestinian protest held outside Los Angeles synagogue developed into a chaotic street violence with pro-Israel counter-protesters on Sunday in an incident that several officials, including President Joe Biden, criticized as anti-Semitic. What do you think? The Los Angeles PD said it responded to 2 protests Sunday in the predominantly Jewish neighborhood of Pico Robertson, just south of Beverly Hills. Videos taken at the scene show police pushing pro-Palestinian protesters away from the entrance of the Adass Torah Temple, an Orthodox synagogue. Now, if it's not anti-Jewish, why didn't the Palestinian supporters protest someplace else, downtown Los Angeles or Manhattan Beach, any number of places? Because they wanted to intimidate the members of the synagogue, and again, prevent them from even entering the synagogue. Chants of free Palestine from the river to the sea and long live Intifada could be heard from among the pro-Palestinian protesters. Participants blocked traffic, and video of the scene shows multiple altercations broke out in the middle of the street on the sidewalks. At the news conference, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass said she plans a meeting with the city attorney's office to talk about the potential for permits for protests people wearing masks at protests, and establishing clear lines of demarcation between what is legal and what is not legal. What do you mean establishing clear demarcation? Those demarcations already exist, Mayor Bass. You have to have someone go out and do some research to figure out what is legal and not legal. And by the way, as a chief executive officer of the city of Los Angeles, LAPD knows, by the way, this is not a bash on LAPD. LAPD knows exactly what's legal and not legal. The question is what is LAPD allowed to do? What is LAPD encouraged not to do when it comes to this stuff? This is the question. And this is very germane to what I started with about the debate from last week. Protests around the Israel-Gaza war have become common across the United States since October. No kidding. But Democratic officials sharply criticized Sunday's event for its violence and for taking place at a Jewish institution. It's anti-Jewish, is what this is. This is hatred for Israel. This is hatred for Jewish people, the Jewish nation, Jewish individuals. That's what this is for. This is intimidation of Jewish people. I'm making this clear. I'm using this article here for a point. I am appalled by the scenes outside of a Das Torah synagogue in Los Angeles. Intimidating Jewish congregants is dangerous, unconscionable, anti-Semitic, and un-American, Biden said on X. Americans have a right to peaceful protest, but blocking access to a house of worship and engaging in violence is never acceptable. Let me tell you something right now. There is a reason that Joe Biden is finally coming out and at least sometimes acknowledging the hatred by these protesters of the Jewish community, Jews in general, and Israel specifically, because he's trying to split the baby politically. He's trying to placate the traditional Jewish population that supports the Democrat Party, and he's trying to placate the anti-Jewish population that has, to some degree, supported the Democrat Party. He has his own radicals in his party. By the way, I hesitate to even phrase it that way because the radicals in his party have become the mainstream of the Democrat Party, unfortunately. This is the truth. This is how much power, how much influence now that the squad and other sympathizers in that party have wielded over the Democratic Party. And this is why Joe Biden, someone who does not have a an original thought in his mind other than to get elected and stay elected, is trying to placate both sides. This is exactly why he's coming out now. But I'll tell you right now, because I speak to some of his supporters, Jewish supporters, that are appalled that he is not more outspoken and more forceful against this type of Jew hatred. And they're thinking about certainly not voting for him and maybe voting for Trump because they are so angry. They are incensed at his inability to call this out for what it is, Jew hatred and violence against Jews. The violent clashes outside the Das Torah synagogue in Los Angeles are appalling, California Governor Newsom said on X. There is no excuse for targeting a house of worship. Such anti-Semitic hatred has no place in California. Well, isn't that nice from the wannabe president of the United States, Gavin Newsom? By the way, I watched him post-debate last week, and uh, this guy, like I said a long time ago, he's simply waiting for a chink in the armor. He's waiting for something to come crashing down and looking for that breach. He's looking for the ability to insert himself into the presidency of the United States, into the Oval Office, whether it's this cycle or not. Now, again, is that prophetic? No. But the point is, he is trying to be coy. He is trying to be the knight in shining armor now. He is trying to show how much he defends and supports Joe Biden, and it's a crock of you know what. This man wants to be president more than he wants to breathe. And All of these things now, he's doing the same thing. He's trying to split the baby here. He's going to say a few niceties about protecting Jews in this country. In the meantime, he's going to say the same types of things about, I guarantee it, about all the hatred towards Muslims in this country. These people try to split the difference all day long because they stand for nothing other than themselves. Jewish and Muslim advocacy groups say the war has led to skyrocketing hate crimes and bias incidents. The Anti-Defamation League reports that anti-Semitic Semitic incidents were up 140% in 2023 compared to the prior year. You think so? No kidding. They are skyrocketing. We are seeing the anti-Israel, the anti-Jewish hatred. We've seen it across the campuses. And by the way, I want to say right now, I talked to one of my contacts at the California Highway Patrol just the other day, and we were talking about the amazing job the CHP did at not only at UCLA, but I'm talking about UCLA, how they cleaned that mess out. But we are seeing this I'm talking about, I mean, these people on these college campuses, not just in the college campuses, but all over the country and all types of protests are praising what Hamas did, on October 7th, advocating for the destruction, the elimination of the Jewish state. That's happening in this country as we speak. It's happening now. And why this is important? I'm going to get to that in 1 second. I'm going to finish up with 2 short paragraphs here. Rabbi Herzl Aludian of the nearby JEM Community Center in Beverly Hills told KCAL, a local station in LA, violence doesn't belong here, and lamented what he saw as a double standard. I don't think the Jewish people would go in front of a mosque, or the Christian people would go in front of a mosque and do such a thing, he said. Nobody would accept this. But here, when it comes to Jews and Israel, everything is kosher. Everything is okay. He's exactly right. Now, why is this so pertinent? Pardon me. I got brand new glasses and they're making me do all kinds of wacky things. Anyway, why is this so pertinent? Going back to how the media has lied to us, how the Biden administration's lied to us about Joe Biden's physical and mental capacity. It's not the only thing they lie about. It's not the only thing that administration or their departments lie to us about. This is what I want to get to, but I had to set it up with that first article. This is now from Fox News, this article. Biden Department of Homeland Security documents suggested Trump supporters, military, and religious people are likely violent terrorist threats. Internal documents show that the board suggested most of the domestic terrorism threat in the U.S. comes from Trump supporters. Again, now this is published back June 22nd, 10 days ago, give or take. A Department of Homeland Security advisor board suggested that supporters of former President Donald Trump, as well as those who served in the military or are religious, have a greater possibility of posing domestic terrorist threats, according to internal files obtained by America First Legal, or AFL, named the Homeland Security Intelligence Experts Group. Folks, anytime you see experts in the name of a group, I'm not talking about, oh, we're the extermination experts, we're your, electrician experts. I get all that. You want your cockroaches done, we're the experts. I get that. I'm talking about in government agencies, when they call themselves, or government advocacy groups, when they call themselves experts, they're referring to themselves, what they mean, they're the masterminds. They're the masterminds. They're the ones that know better than anybody else. You need not do any research. You need not look further. Just trust us. We're the experts. You're a little You're a minion. You are a nobody. You don't know how to read a book. You don't know how to do your own research. You don't know how to stand up for yourself. So just sit back, relax, and let us, the masterminds, AKA experts, do the work for you. And then once we do our research, you do what you're told by us. That's what this means. And by the way, Anthony, please link to this article. And ladies and gentlemen, in the article, you can go to these hyperlinks and see specifically the documents to which I'm referring, just so you know, so you, my audience, you know how to do this. You can do your own research, and so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So named the Homeland Intelligence Experts Group, the now disbanded board was created in September of 2023 to provide DHS with quote unquote expert analysis on subjects like terrorism and the trafficking of certain controlled substances like fentanyl. What's so significant about that? Well, there's a lot. Where are we now? We're in July of 2024. This group, these experts, this group was created in September of 2023, and it's now already disbanded. What do you think's happened since they put together this group to tell you and me, people who may be conservative, who may have served in the military, who may worship a particular God, that we are the threat to American security? We are a terrorist threat, or we are a likely, or the more likely terrorist threat. Why do you think this mastermind group was disbanded in 7, 8 months, whatever it is? Because of that first article that I read to you. Not that the anti-Jewish hatred was not already spiraling out of control before October 7th last year, but because it is accelerated to such an indisputable level with indisputable hatred and violence against Jews in this country, they could no longer keep making this claim that as experts, they've identified people like you and me as the real terrorist threats in this country. Even these liars couldn't do it. Even these phonies and frauds couldn't do it anymore. So they disbanded the group. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, why is this important? Because this is the same ilk. This is the same bunch of people that have been lying to us about what Joe Biden looks like and sounds like in public. That's why this is all tied together. They lie and lie and lie. Now they want to lie about you and me, law-abiding citizens, being the threat to American security. The panel, according to the Conservative Legal Nonprofit's finding, that's the AFL, included former director, get this, included former director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, and former CIA director, John Brennan, both of whom signed onto an October 2020 letter falsely dismissing Hunter Biden's infamous laptop as Russian disinformation. Do you remember that? I know I've talked about this recently, but I'm going to stay on this. These people knowingly signed the letter that they knew was not true. These people knew that this laptop that Hunter Biden left at the repair shop had nothing to do with Russia, except for maybe having, Stolstein vodka spilled all over it. Maybe that's likely. Other than that, it had no ties to Russia. But 51 of these liars signed that letter as an attempt to influence the 2020 election, and it almost certainly had an impact on that election. And now these two creeps are part of the mastermind experts that are now telling us that certain religious people, military personnel, conservatives, yes, Trump supporters, that those are the groups from which terrorists are likely to emerge. This should be frightening to everybody listening to this. They can't even go out and find enough new liars. They had to recycle these morons from the Hunter Biden laptop scam and now create this group to try to do it all over again. Remember when Merrick Garland a few years ago wanted to send out the FBI to arrest parents for actually going to school board meetings and having arguments with school boards about masks and about schools being closed and about vaccine mandates? Remember that? Remember Merrick Garland, the AG, the Attorney General? Remember that? This is the same mindset. It's the same ilk of people telling me that parents going to school boards, they are dangerous. They are a threat to American security. And now they've expanded it a little bit that people that may worship a certain God or may have served in the military or may be conservative, they're the real problem, not these people that are openly and proudly professing their hope for the destruction of Israel and the elimination of the Jewish race. Those people are not the problem. Let me continue. The documents revealed that the board suggested supporters of the former president accounted for most of the domestic terrorism threat in the U.S. It's a lie. It's a lie. We know where domestic terrorism is coming from right now in the form of these protests and Jew haters. We know exactly where it's coming from. And I don't think anybody in their right objective mind thinks that former military personnel or people who happen to worship a certain God are interested in terrorism in this country. Citing unnamed researchers. Now, this was, and by the way, I skipped through a lot of this for you. Citing unnamed researchers. Now, isn't that convenient? Oh, listen, who needs footnotes? Who needs to document our research? Just again, this is what masterminds do. Just take our word for it because you're not bright enough. You're not bright enough to do your own research or figure these things out for yourself. Let us take care of you like the moron you are. That's what they think about you and me, ladies and gentlemen. That's the contempt that these people have for American citizens. And these are the people, yes, that have the potential to seriously influence law enforcement in this country and using law enforcement as a political tool rather than an objective necessity to keep the peace and civility in this country. That's who these people are. Citing unnamed researchers, the board also claimed that specific traits like those who serve in the military or are religious are indicators of extremists and terrorism that in the U.S. should be more worried about. If you ask researchers to dive into the indicators of extremism and terrorism, they might indicate being in the military or religious, the board said. This being identified as an indicator suggests we should be more worried about those. We need the space to talk about it honestly. The files were released Friday as the second installment of AFL's Deep State Diaries, which hashtag Deep State Diaries, which was described by the organization as a multi-part series of releases, including newly obtained documents. And again, Anthony, make sure we link to this article. In that article, ladies and gentlemen, you can click on these hyperlinks like it, and you can actually read these documents. And they're somewhat redacted to probably hide some of these names behind it. But all of the verbiage, all the communications are right there to read. It's absolutely shocking. It's absolutely shocking. I didn't know this was coming up here. These shocking records reveal apparent unabashed partisanship on this deep state committee, and deep state it is. These people are embedded. They are embedded in the deep state, in the swamp. AFL executive director Gene Hamilton told Fox Digital, all efforts to weaponize the federal government against political opponents of the ruling regime should be stopped. We look forward to exposing more records in the coming days. Echoing Hamilton in a statement shared on social media, AFL president Stephen Miller, who's an absolute rock star. This guy is solid. If you don't know Stephen Miller, I want you to follow Stephen Miller, read Stephen Miller, watch Stephen Miller, listen to Stephen Miller. He is a brilliant patriot warrior, and he is hated by the establishment, which means he's good for America. Stephen Miller's 7 documents reveal a shocking Biden plan to mobilize government power against Trump supporters ahead of the election. And there's more and more and more, but I'm going to stop right there. We are looking at a game plan of lies, deceit, slander, intimidation against the American people by a political party, telling you and me, your friends, your family, that if you happen to be conservative, you happen to be religious of certain religious denominations, that you are a potential or a more likely terrorist threat to this country. These are lies. They know it. They don't care. It's just like the lies about Joe Biden being totally cognitively 100% on his game, and we all knew it. And God bless him. I'm not wishing any bad on Joe Biden. I'm just saying we can see with our own eyes. We can hear with our own ears. We don't need to be told that this man has a mind as sharp as a razor blade when we can clearly see and hear that's not true. And we damn sure don't need to be told that being part of a certain religion, that being a Christian in this country means you're more likely to be a terrorist than the animals we see calling for the destruction, the elimination of Israel and the Israeli people on these campuses and other places in this country. That's what I wanted to share with you today, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you don't have to be on one side or another of the political spectrum to see the truth and make your decisions about who you vote for based on other issues, economics and social programs and things like that. That's fine. I understand that. But when it comes to telling the truth and when it comes to enforcing the law objectively, at least more objectively, there's one side that's better than the other. And you know where I fall on that, where I stand on that. Thanks for listening. God bless you. God bless America. And I don't know what's going to happen on November 5th, but whatever side you're on, well, you know where I stand and you know how I hope it turns out. God bless you. We'll see you next time. And by the way, we have a fantastic show coming up next week. And I'm going to tell you right now, is our old friend John McKinney, who's a previous candidate for Los Angeles District Attorney. He was actually beaten in the primaries by another gentleman that he and I are strongly supporting and advocate for, and that is Nathan Hochman, who's running against George Gascon to uproot and fire that guy from that job in Los Angeles County. And I'm going to have both of those gentlemen, John McKinney and Nathan Hochman, hopefully the next DA of Los Angeles County on our show next week. Tell your friends, get ready for that. We're going to send a notification out, of course, like we do for all the shows when it comes out. But be standing by. It's going to be a great show. It's going to be an opportunity for you, no matter where you live in this country, to support Nathan Hochman. And let's start one DA, one county at a time, of returning objective, serious, strong law enforcement to America. Looking forward to talking to you then. God bless you. Take care.